I was just strolling around the streets, Rob, and a note flew into my face. And the note was like, 2 weeks ago, you'd said you'd never leave me, and here I am alone. And in this world of reckless happenstance, why do we have to go away? And then I leave you with nothing. And you left me with nothing. Ah ha ha ha. And a strange disease. I don't know how Vanis finds me. I don't know why he leaves these cryptic notes.
Yeah.
I will leave it up to you, the fans at home, to let me know what that is. What does that mean? What does it mean? I don't understand.
Hey, can I ask, has Vanis ever been the first word that you've selected in your daily Wordle?
I'll do that going forward. I'll do that going forward.
Yeah.
Although, because the thing is, I don't think Vanis is a recognized word yet because he hasn't got to that stat where it's like in the proper dictionary. Yeah. So I feel like I'm burning. Have you played the music version, Rob, of it?
Hurdle?
Of the Hurdle? I'll send you the link. My buddies are doing it, and it's tremendous. So they give you a clip of a song, and they play the beginning of it, and you have to guess the band or the name of this. It's super fun.
Okay, cool.
John, disregard because you won't get anything. But Rob, for you might get some stuff. So it's pretty good. I'll send you the link. It's a lot of fun.
Maybe they did 90s R&B. Someone sent me a link.
Specifically, 90s.
There was a Jeopardy category.
R&B just for John Ho. So it has to be very specific, and then a sprinkle, and it has to be 90% Mariah. So really, that's what it is, as how it works. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Heroes World Quarantine Podcast. I'm your host, Stu Pei. With me is one of the owners and proprietors of Heroes World. That'd be Mr. John Ho. Please say hello.
Howdy, folks.
Those of you at night would know him as Vanis. And our resident Prince of Mischief, Mr. Rob Gadet. Hello.
Hey everybody, how's it going? I haven't shaved in 2 weeks. I thought maybe I would let my cherub good looks.
I was really hoping that
I can see it.
Yeah. I was hoping, Rob, you get the black eye makeup on and just cover your eyes.
Yeah. John did the same thing. So. He's like, hey, where's your wife's mascara all over your face?
And
Rob,
like,
it's not. It's on my thighs. All right.
That flew over real quick. Rob,
some people would have got it, and they're like, "Oh, he's in trouble."
Rob was wearing the mascara, quietly crying in his room about.
Yeah, generally that's what happens.
Yeah, generally. Yeah. So, welcome. We are doing our review of The Batman, the 2022 film that finally got released. Lots of trial and tribulations. A lot of things happened in this movie, and we're here to talk about it. The history of this movie is interesting because we have been documenting for as long as we've been doing this podcast with hey, maybe Robert Pattinson's not happy on set. Hey, COVID has really changed things. So here we are. We've seen all the rumors. We've heard anything. And now we're going to give our thoughts.
Too, right? One of the bike stunts. I think one of the bike stunts, someone got injured. Like a lot of stuff happened behind the scenes on set.
A lot of drama happened in terms of Robert Pattinson's not happy with the cowl. Like, why is he not jacked enough? What's going on? Like, the fact that Robert Pattinson was cast as the Batman. So a lot of things that came to our attention we talked about. And the fact that they were moving forward with this TV show. And they're like, well, why if this movie hasn't come out? Why would they even think about a TV show?
Yeah.
So here we go. The movie made a lot of money over the weekend, over
134 million over domestic, and I think 200 and something overseas. I think overall it was
300 something. So it's a lot of money. A lot of people are interested in this movie. It is very different. Even the poster, as you can see, is not the same as it is. But John, give us your general non-spoilery thoughts of this movie, because you had a lot of you immediately sent the picture of the Batmobile and you're like, I'm kind of down. So talk to us about your thoughts of this movie.
Yeah, so overall, if this is what DC's kind of doing and things like that, I'm in. So without getting too deep into it, I'm pretty happy with the overall product. I'm pretty happy with the response to it, and their merchandising is like on fire like right now. So there's not much more you can ask for in a comic book related movie. when you're a comic shop owner. So it seems to have ticked all the boxes, but I can, however, on the flip side, understand if some people don't dig this. But if you do dig it, there's going to be a lot of juicy things for you, and the length. I don't know if we're going to talk about the 3-hour length later on, but the length of the movie might get to some of you who are not fans of this. But if you like it, you are going to appreciate that extra time that you spend in Gotham City. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the product.
Mr. Goodette, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I
obviously most hype out of all of us.
The what? The most hype? Yeah, I'm not going to get into. I'm going to give a very overview of this because obviously we're not going to get into spoilers. I'm not going to talk about certain scenes. What I'm going to talk about is it's interesting that John brings up the merchandising. I don't feel that this movie has been merchandised towards kids as past Batman movies have. But that being said, listen, they're still making toys. And I would caution anybody who is thinking of taking their young child, this is not a movie for your 10-year-old. I took my son, he's 13. Would I take my 10-year-old daughter if she was a movie buff? Probably not. If you haven't seen the movie now, the likelihood is you have read some of the reviews, and you've probably read people say it borrows from Seven or from Zodiac. Those are very fair comparisons that should give you some sense of like the darkness, and no pun intended, Batman darkness. But this is a psychological thriller along those veins of those movies. And I think that it is definitely more of a mature movie. So I wanted to get that out of the way. If you're thinking if you have younger kids, you want to take them to see a comic book movie, this is not the one for them. With that said, though, this is for me, I really enjoyed this movie. There is a lot to chew on in this movie. It is 3 hours. It rewards you for the time spent because it is purposefully and methodically slow. But this is the most, you will not have another movie or no other Batman movie thus far has had the Batman character in it as much as this movie. Oftentimes you get like a, 60, 70% Bruce Wayne, 30, 35% Batman. In this one, you're at 80, 85% Batman and about 15% Bruce Wayne, which is, I think, as a fan of the character, I loved. I really appreciated the fact that the movie is called The Batman, and that's what you get. You get the Batman. You don't get Bruce Wayne as the Batman. This, we'll get into it, but overall, I wish, if not for COVID having been in my household this week, I would have already seen this movie a second time. So
you invited that MFR over.
So I am very much looking forward to seeing it again. It is a fantastic movie, a lot to build upon, a lot to improve on, but one hell of a swing for the fences for Matt Reeves and company.
John,
all right, Stu, you were the most critical, I think, going into this, probably.
Yeah, I think this movie, DC, as you mentioned, John, they are kind of constantly going on their own path, not by choice, but because they have to, because they decided to get rid of the Snyderverse. So continuously, they are giving directors, actors the opportunity to do something different, which is fantastic for us because we get an opportunity to see a different style Batman, a different Suicide Squad, a different Wonder Woman, a different Aquaman. Like, we can kind of just enjoy all these films. But I think Robin has touched upon in the past, is that it takes away this Pokemon gotta catch 'em all mentality where it's not all connected. So who cares if I miss a movie? So it's good and bad. Like, when you get this type of highly reviewed, 86 on Rotten Tomatoes by critics and 98 by film audience score, people really, if you like it a lot. And I think that these films do a really good job of capturing the vision of the director. And you could say it's not always the same for the Marvel MCU. Many directors say a little more stifled in there, that like, oh, you got to fill this vision. You can do a little flair here and there as a director, but really this is the box. You have to fill it out, and this is what you have to do. There would never be a way that Marvel films could do something like this. It is just so different and so mature in terms of just all the kind of the slowness and pace and everything that is happening in the film. It fits, as Rob mentioned before, Seven. It fits kind of that crime noir feel. And I think that Andre spoke before. It's like, there's not really been a detective Batman. And Matt Reeves kind of said, well, this is the time. And when he did his DC, what we talked about before, and some of us were critical about, in this DC, fandom, this guy's talking about this gritty Batman character and he's going to pull from this stuff. A lot of us were like, that'll be interesting to see what happens. And like you both said, if you're in, you're really in. If you're out within the first hour, you're just like, how long is this movie? Like, it really drags. If you're not in on this movie when the first hour, bail. So it's like it's not your film. So it will be interesting, John, to see your point where theater is a experience where you're locked, you're connected, you're focused. It's 3 hours in. I'm very curious to see how people feel when this is in 40 days, when this is on HBO Max. How many people will be like, I watched the first hour, I took a break, I did some, and then 2 days later, I got the next hour. It becomes more like a prestige TV show.
Yeah.
Kind of like,
I think some people will like
episodes.
it. Some people will dig it to be able to watch an hour at a time or something like that.
But that's not how it intended to be, John.
Oh yeah,
It's
that's not the
not-
intention,
it's not-
but I think
It's not like you
for some
buy,
people, it's
you
gonna
don't buy a
work.
muscle car and use it to just buy groceries, and you're like, that's
You
what I want to
do.
do.
You do, Stu. You're wrong.
John, you buy to. Oh, okay. How about this? You don't buy a muscle car to move furniture. Like, you don't. That's not the purpose of the car. It's like you bought it for a reason. You want to race it. You want to drive it. You want to have fun with it. Not that you're trying to move like couches from one house to another. Like the intention was there, and I feel like
I agree with Stu. And I think that if you are the type of cinephile or movie lover that if you're going to sit down, you're going to watch The Godfather without taking a piss break. Like, you're going to watch Casino, Goodfellas, Scarface. Like, you are going to sit down and committed for those 2.5, 2 3/4 movie in one sitting. This speaks to you. This movie will reward you. But yeah, if you're like John, where you have to break up your entertainment watching into chunks because you've got other things going on, you might lose that momentum. That again, it will reward you, but
or you might not go back, and that's the flaw.
Well, that's true. That's the flip side too, is that you might find it to be just a bit too heavy and be like, okay, I'll just pick this up later, and then look at the best of clips on YouTube. The
DC case study is so interesting because I think we are all, as last week we did the whole Batman wheel of morality, turn. There are so many different Batman movies, each with their own twang and twist. Some are more action, some are more science fiction, some are Batman and Robin. Like, they're just all weird in their own ways.
Own category, folks.
Own category. And if you're a Batman fan, you could look at all of them and nitpick, and you're like, you like certain things here and there. This is that movie too, where I'm sure there's a lot of people there will say, this is not my Batman, even though this is very comically correct at a certain extent, but Batman is many things to many people. So it is, I would be interested to see how many people really are enthused, because I'm sure there's just as many people who are like, I want the Bat God version who just goes around like Arkham Asylum, just going around destroying everyone with martial art technique. I want the Batman who is more suave and debonair as Bruce Wayne. Like, this one, he doesn't recognize the tool, the power that is Bruce Wayne yet. He's like, I hate him. I don't need to do it. Even the subtle things about the accountants, it's like, I don't care about that. It's like, no. Bruce Wayne has a necessity, and even at that, like, again, it works very well. So before we get to spoilers, John, as we know, math for you doesn't matter. Can you give us a score out of 10?
So score out of 10. Just before I give that away, I do recommend it if you are going to see this in theater. See it on a really nice screen. It is a little bit on the darker side, like actually visually, a lot of nighttime stuff. So my screen wasn't that great.
A Batman film, John. That's what a Batman.
You can see it on a nice. Yeah, it's not going to be colorful, bright lights, but yeah. So see it on a really nice screen if you can. And so I'm interested to hear what people at home when they watch it on their really nice setup. So out of 10, I don't know. Upon reflection, I kind of want to give it a 10. So I think I'm going to give it a 10.
All right, Rob.
I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10.
I came out of this movie and only having seen it once, and I was like, it was an 8 for me.
Only once, sorry.
Only once. Well, I like to see these things a couple times in open weekend. Mm-hmm. It was an 8 for me. But a couple of things really started nagging, like, in a good way. Like, they were like an earworm. It was churning in my brain. I couldn't get it out of my head.
I think that's exactly.
And so I'm bumping it to an 8.5.
That's it?
I know you're
0.5?
well, because I think that there is some things with this movie. It's not a perfect movie, but for me an 8.5. Is I don't give things 10 generally, John. You give out tens.
Did you see the Batmobile?
Yes. No, I did. No, listen, I really like this movie, but I think where this movie is a foundation, and I think the next one is really going to do well. So anyways, we'll get into that after, but yeah, for me, it's an 8.5. Stu?
Rob, we're on the page, and then you went off. I would say it's an 8. Yeah,
really? That's it.
I have a couple concerns and problems that we'll talk about the review spoiler part. To Rob, right now I feel like it's an 8. I feel like I'm gonna have to take some more time, watch it again, and see how I feel, because I think the Nolan films are still fresh in my brain. Like those are still kind of, and the Hans Zimmer soundtrack music. Like, don't get me wrong, the music for this movie was incredible, but like I still feel like it's still kind of ingrained in me. I'll need a little more time to decompress and think about it. Maybe it'll go up, maybe it'll go down, but I feel like it's a very solid 8. I think, needless to say, we're all going to recommend to see this in the theater if possible. Like, I think it's a really important experience to see on a big screen. It is meant to be seen there. If you can't and see it at home, so be it. But it is a big movie, blockbuster, kind of a sneaky. Like it's a blockbuster in terms of it's a Batman film, but really like it's kind of like
it has like a really indie flair to it.
Yeah, it has like HBO Max like TV feel to it. It feels like a TV show at the same time. In terms
I wouldn't go that low.
Well, I guess
I think you could have added 2 hours to it, and it could have been
like it could have been like I'm just saying, like the writing, the soliloquies, the plot lines, like it was a really good movie, and it has a lot of nuance to it. I'm saying now, slowly as we move to Obi-Wan and all these, which basically are glorified movies that are shoved to this thing, like we praise Marvel all the time. Like, look at the Book of Boba Fett. Look how nice it looks. It could be a movie if they just cut it stuff. Like, it's not a slight to the Batman. I'm just saying, like, it has a feel to it because sometimes the monologue in this film drags on a little bit long, and the pacing holds just that Mad Men, like it holds on to a scene for like 5 more seconds than it should. And that would really only happen on like
it's meant to throw you.
No, but that's the thing. Like that's what they do on prestige TV shows, not on the Superman Batman movie where they just hold a frame on on a piece for no reason. Like that's what you see on Mad Men, not what you see in a blockbuster movie like the Justice League.
No, but you do see it on a movie like No Country for Old Men, where you also
see this movie.
Right, where you do see it on those early Fincher movies that are purposefully trying to throw you off.
Yeah, but again, not a superhero blockbuster movie.
But that's what. But don't you think?
Although you could say that, Old
Country,
that's what separates you could say that one of the characters is superhuman, but we're not going to ruin that story as is. Right. But yeah. All right, we're going to go into full spoilers because we've danced around too much. We're going to full. So if you haven't watched it, stay away. Come back to it. Pause. Okay, we're back. And we're back, John. Tell us your thoughts. Like now that there were spoilers.
So
like, what do you
think? Are we going full spoiler? Are we going to leave a comparison to other Bat stuff later, right? Because you already just talked about Dark Knight for a second there. All right.
Sure. Whatever.
So I
start from the beginning.
A lot of stuff.
First opening.
I start 1999.
So I started off with a list of my favorite things from the movie, and it started to kind of balloon into like 10 things. But I cut it back down because we don't got time for that.
John, there are 10 things I hate about you, so keep it short.
I know. All right. So my top 5 things of this movie and why I feel like it works for me, and you can figure out how my score gets inflated to a 10 possibly at the end of this list. Number 5, Stu already mentioned it. The music. The music is killer. The orchestral or whatever you want to call it,
orchestral.
Orchestral. Yeah, I don't know. I'm bad at pronouncing shit.
No, it's not.
Words are hard.
With kazoos. Don't worry about
it. Mixed in with this Nirvana track, which I think was the only vocal track used in the movie, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
really
Ava Maria.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You're okay. You're right. Yeah.
The only
But yeah,
English one, Rob. English.
Okay, fine.
Por favor,
it really
por favor.
fit. I've listened to the
Don't you
soundtrack
speak
a couple
Spanish,
times.
Rob? Damn it.
Come on. Yeah, so it's a really good soundtrack. I think people are really going to dig it, and you're going to want to listen to it after the movie. The main theme is hella creepy. If you're driving around at night, listening to it, it's actually going to give you a whole vibe of what you're doing. It make you think you're up to some shady shit. Next, number 4 is the dynamic duo. Not Alfred and Batman. I'm actually going to pick Batman and Commissioner Gordon because I really like seeing the two of them together. I think I had a quick picture here, but yeah, I thought this dynamic was really great. They even had that one really funny moment where Batman punches him out and bounces, and he's like, "I thought you were gonna pull that punch," and the Batman's like, "I did." So, and there's not many jokes. There's not too many jokes in there. I have a list of funny stuff, but we'll save that for later. Number 3, Batman's whole motivation, like kind of like he does this transition from vengeance, fear. And then towards the end, he kind of moves to this kind of beacon of light idea. I really like that. And I really liked his mentality of, I don't think I can change Gotham City, but I have to try. Like, it's all about, trying to make the change. Like, I really liked that theme. And I don't think I picked that up right away when I left the theater. I was like, why is he cutting the cord from this thing to land in the water? And why is this a big deal? And I'm like, oh, wait, he's like exposing himself so everyone sees him, right? Normally he just operates from the shadows in the whole movie, right? Number 2, Gotham City. Gotham City looks fantastic. It just took it a life of its own. Like I'm sure Rob's going to talk about the cinematography and the shots and all that kind of stuff. But it looked really good, and it really immersed you into it. They did a really good job of updating it as well, so it just didn't feel like some relic of the 50s. They had technology interspliced in there.
Well, they just filmed in the UK, John. That's the difference. Yeah. Every other one's filmed in Pittsburgh,
Chicago,
Chicago, Pittsburgh. It's like, oh, film. Like, how do you do New York? Well, you go to basically go to London, because London basically looks like downtown New York in the 80s. Yeah. So everything's filmed there. So
yeah, but just everything, like the architecture, everything that they threw into it, you could really kind of feel like this wasn't your just regular place, like you said, like it wasn't just New York or something like that. It felt like something different. I haven't been to London, so maybe it feels like London.
Did it feel like a European type style?
I don't know. I've never been to Europe. Look who's fancy, gone to Europe, and it's like, oh, it looks just like this place I went to last summer. Must be nice. Anyways, number 1, I'm pretty sure you all see this coming. Did you see the Batmobile? Because the Batmobile is phenomenal in this movie. Right from when the engine starts, the entire scene it's involved in. This is the first Batmobile I actually legit believe that it can do everything it does on screen. Of course, they've used a combination of different cars to do different things, but it looks like something that could actually do these things for Batman. And I like the whole idea of Robert Pattinson being this Bruce Wayne being kind of a gearhead. They do a lot of kind of slow panning shots of engines taken apart and just kind of just the car just sitting in the background. Like some of the scenes, you just see it and the engine is exposed, and that car is like, one of the car gearhead terms is that car is like probably like 80% motor. Like it's just like a loose carbon fiber shell on this gigantic motor. You might as well just have Batman sitting on top like a freaking old school dragster or bobblehead of some kind. But the Batmobile is what pushes it to the 10 for me. And if we compare it to Dark Knight, it's probably going to be the reason why it beats Dark Knight for me. But anyways.
As a movie? Wow. Okay.
Wow. All right, Rob?
No, John, is there anything else? Those are your 5 things. Or anything else about the movie that you wanted to talk about?
Okay, we'll get back to him. Don't worry.
Go ahead. Rob, I got other stuff.
Yeah, but you know me. I can go on. I'm going to have to
each get your own soliloquy.
We got to go to the hype train master. This guy was so hyped.
You all get the trailer
like
Michael
hundreds of times.
Diamond speech, Rob. You only get one. So now is your chance to talk about some people don't care. Like, you got to like, okay, boys. You just got to go for it.
Some people just want to see the world burn.
Go. That's more like a Connery, but we'll let it go. We'll go ahead.
James Bond was in this.
Yeah. So I don't even know where to be. So I'm going to the first thing I want to talk about is, John has brought up the Dark Knight Stu, you brought up the Nolan. There seems to have been this influx of individuals who are shitting all over the Nolan movies, and I would say that's laziness. These things can exist. You don't need to be shitting on one property to boost the other. It's interesting that John, with the first thing, it was top number 5 of 5 was the music. That was the one thing I wasn't really hyped going into, was this music. And yet I have to admit, the next morning, as I was in the shower, I was humming like the Batman theme. Like, I can't get that theme.
Away.
I'm a Nirvana fan. So the actual like Michael whatever. Yeah, thanks. Oh, his score. I can't get out of my head, and that for me is a lasting impression for me. So the music really turned me around while watching the movie. This movie was originally supposed to come out in the fall of 2021, and I gotta tell you, I wish that, as much as we wanted it now, I wish they had pushed it to October of this year, because I really do think that the tone of the movie, the darkness, the time it takes place at Halloween. It's Halloween night is the beginning of the movie. I think that this movie would have really freaked the shit out of people in the fall around the Halloween time. Like, I really do think sometimes when you release a Christmas movie in the summertime, it kind of loses its thing. Watching at Christmas.
Well, Rob,
what did? No, I hear you. I get it. But what I'm saying is that tone. Well,
you can't hold it.
In all fairness, the Flash was supposed to be October. That might have been their reasoning as to why they wanted it now. The Flash is gone. They could have easily slipped.
I think they did look at the schedule. They're like, "There's nothing here. Look how much money Spider-Man's still making." Because
Uncharted got a pocket that just
Uncharted, who is just a cluster F, made money.
Yeah.
So you have to put this out.
But I'm just saying, sometimes movies and its release window, they can go hand in hand. I think this would have benefited had this been out when it was originally supposed to. Can we talk about Colin Farrell? Because that guy, my wife had no clue it was Colin Farrell. When I told her, I was like, and my son doesn't know who Colin Farrell is, so I had to show him a photo. He's like, "There's no way." Like Colin Farrell, for me, every scene he was in, he almost stole it from everybody else that was around him. I was completely in love with it. I mean, I know they've just announced, they've formally confirmed through DC's Twitter feeds and everything else that the Penguin, the working title, is going forward. I'm very excited to see what they do with that. I loved his take on Oswald Cobblepot. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. And you would not know that was Colin Farrell if you didn't know beforehand, you'd be shocked as shit. That's who it was. Paul Dano as the Riddler, again, a whole different take on what we're used to. For this character, very creepy, very much like the Zodiac killer in that movie. And my wife, when we got out of it, she was like, when he's in Arkham and he's like, yeah, as you can see on the screen, you see his face there, and he's talking to Batman, and he's saying Bruce Wayne, my wife's like, this guy's freaking me out. That's why I mentioned No Country for Old Men, because my wife was like, he is up there with Shiger for her. Like, he freaked the shit out of her. She was like, I don't want to see that guy again. I want to hear his voice. Like, Paul Dano is one hell of an actor. If you've ever seen There Will Be Blood. So I had no concerns that he was going to pull off this type of Riddler, and I was very happy with that. There's going to be a lot of, the length is obviously going to be an issue, but Robert Pattinson's, his portrayal, he's very slow. He's very detective-like. And I don't mean slow as in like how he, his fighting styles, but he's very methodical. I loved the real world applications. He's got the contact lens that records everything. I love the fact that he didn't shy away from the black eye makeup that goes underneath the cowl. How many times have we all made jokes about Batman Returns at that scene when Michael Keaton's got the mask on, and then they cut to Catwoman, they cut back to him, and then he rips the cowl up, but you can see right before he has no black makeup on. They never wanted to acknowledge that. Or even Ben Affleck, when he did that as well, when he pulls off his mask and then all of a sudden the black is gone. Yet this one is like, why are we ignoring the fact that they wear black makeup around their eyes? Like, it makes sense. I love that we saw that. I know that leading up to it, people calling, it's the emo Bruce Wayne. But I think like his Bruce Wayne was a very interesting take. He's in his mid-20s, I think, at that point. And he's struggling. Stu said it best. He's struggling with the persona of what Bruce Wayne is supposed to be. This movie starts off with with Batman narrating, and it ends with Batman narrating. And I gotta say, it's just
I love
movie,
that. Yeah,
this movie felt different from other Batman movies that have come before. There's a lot of comparisons John made about The Dark Knight. I love The Dark Knight, and for me, that's still my favorite Batman movie. Although I have a huge thing for Batman in 89 and 92. But, The Dark Knight as a Batman movie, my favorite. They can both exist. I think for me, that it's much more fast-paced. It's a bit more, it gives you that adrenaline when you need it, The Dark Knight. But I think The Dark Knight only succeeds because of Heath Ledger's Joker. It doesn't succeed because of the Batman as a character. Whereas this movie, it succeeds because of everybody brought their A game. Like Robert Pattinson's Batman was phenomenal, but Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman was amazing. I already mentioned Colin Farrell, John Turturro, like Jeffrey Wright, like everybody elevated everything, and the sum of its parts make it just so amazing. Whereas The Dark Knight, you really do gravitate every time you think The Dark Knight. Your first instinct is to say the Joker. What an amazing. So I really love the Batman. I'm blown away by Robert Pattinson's take because I wasn't sure how I was going to enjoy that. I wasn't sure how I was going to like the costume. I remember when we had talked about it during Fandom 2 years ago, I was like, I don't know if I like that, the cowl and everything. It's not my favorite Batman costume on screen. 92. Batman Returns for me is the most accurate Batman costume on screen. But this is up there in terms of its movement, its practicality. It's haunting. This movie for me is a great movie. And as a dad, and taking my kid to see his first Batman in a movie theater, I was very proud that this was the first one we got to see together.
Okay. Thank you.
Remember, folks, he only gave it an 8.5 after all that. So go back.
No, but we'll talk about things that we didn't like. We'll talk about things.
John,
Dude.
let's not forget what. John, I don't think you should be lecturing us about numbers and ranking.
I totally should.
Mr. Somehow Hawkeye is worse than Peacemaker.
Hey, let's not talk about Hawkeye, Matt. Let's talk about what you thought, Stu.
I don't think Peacemaker got consecutive 10s each time, but yet it's better than Hawkeye. Yeah, I look back at this I think, Rob, you hit the nail on the head. Everyone had a really good performance. Everyone had their moment to really shine. I felt like there wasn't too much stunt casting because you could be guilty of overcasting. It's like that scene from Wayne's World 2 where the gas attendant is like,
right,
and where he's like, I know, but can we get some? And then Charlton Heston comes, he's like, oh my god, I knew a girl once, and then you just see Wayne cry. Like there's a thing when you could bring too much to the table, and I think it teetered on that level of bringing the right amount of talent for the main roles. And then all the character actors were kind of spliced in. And I'm just so happy to see new character actors. Like this is not the same, 6 guys I see every single time.
Right.
Peter Sarsgaard is a character actor, but he's done a lot of things. But
I was surprised to see him. Did you know he was in the movie beforehand? I had no clue.
Yes, I did. Yeah, but it's I figure it was his wife put a good word for him, and then he got in a movie. So as she was in Batman film, Rachel. So I figure that was the case. Just like how spouses work their magic, get you a job. I figured maybe that was something that happened. But other than every single other character, that random police officers, the mayor, like the new mayor, like all these people, I'm like, I've never heard of any of them, and that was nice. It was nice not to see an actor. I'm like, oh, this guy's in it for like 3 seconds, and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like I was just happy to see an opportunity for new people to kind of be in a Batman movie. As much as I love David Dalmentia, that's in Batman movies and in everything else, Polka Dot Man. But after a while, you can only look. Every time you see them, you're like, oh, for sure he's crooked or he's the bad guy. It's one of those moments where when you see character actors, sometimes you're like, oh, automatically you know they're the bad guy. But in this movie, because you didn't know any of these people, you had no idea whether who's guilty or not. You're like, oh, maybe are they the bad guy? Are they? They don't have a history. Like they're not the mustache twirling bad guy I've seen in 6 other films. So it was nice to kind of go in with the complete mystery of like, oh, I don't really know. Maybe he's bad, but I don't have this baggage of like, oh, I've seen you in another movie. I know you're bad. So this is a nice thing to have. Yeah, I think everyone did a good job. I have to really go to nitpicks right now because that's my biggest. Okay. I gotta go to gripes.
Okay.
Because I know you guys are bringing this up, but I have 2 big gripes about this film, and I'm gonna drop it down first to get your thoughts. 1, Andy Serkis, Alfred. Not a fan of his performance. I'm not a fan of this
performance at all. Wait, but what performance? You only saw him in 2 scenes.
I was like, okay, you're here? No, 3 scenes. 3 scenes, bro.
Right, okay, fair enough.
He had a heavy reveal. He had to do the whole kind of Thomas Wayne reveal.
I'm like, oh, and then the way that his character was like, oh, you worked at the circus, and yet you opened mail for Bruce Wayne. And I'm like, really? Like you're a spy. Am like, and you just nonchalantly just decide to open mail without thinking about any of this stuff? I'm just like, okay.
Especially a shady looking package.
Yeah, I was like, man. I'm like, you just like, if you're Bruce Wayne, you get packages, you're just gonna open up mail that comes. Anyway, so that was my like.
You want us to talk about that one first, or
yes,
you want to
go for it? Yes.
Sorry. Okay. So, John, what are your thoughts then about Stu's gripe about Alfred Pennyworth as played by Andy Serkis?
None of you guys talked about him once about this movie. Yeah, he was not even brought up.
It was going to be one of my detractions, but not for your reason.
Yeah. Typically, Alfred likes to steal the show. It's as seen in the Nolan trilogy, and then he gets a whole bunch of funny stuff.
Batman v Superman. He steals the show.
He steals. Yeah. So I'm fine with Alfred going to a more backseat role. I was perfectly fine with his role. I don't know this. I don't follow this guy a lot. Like I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings. I was gonna say Game of Thrones. Lord of the Rings guy.
What? You're not a fan of director of Venom 2, Andy Serkis? I wish I'm making up. He directed Venom 2.
Dude, he was in. Yeah, he's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's Claw.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, but I don't know. I'm not that familiar with him really. Other than
he's Caesar.
He's doing his work as Golem. Ulysses as
in a mocap.
The director of Venom 2.
The one movie you gave 10 to. You gave 10 to Venom 2. Let's just not forget.
I'm fine. No, I didn't. I definitely did not. Did. I'm fine with his portrayal and that he was and he wasn't a key component of the movie, which I was fine with. Go ahead, Rob.
Well, he reminded me. I mean, I think that this movie takes pieces from a whole bunch of different storylines. I think that Alfred is taken from the Batman Earth 1, Jeff Johns, Gary Frank story.
Sure, it looks like.
I was very surprised at how little of Alfred we got. We got like next to nothing. We got him after that first night when Bruce is out on Halloween night and he comes back. He
offered some berries.
Right, got him some berries and yogurt. He helps solve the cipher, as Stu says. He does open up the mail, and then he's in the hospital, and that was it. So this is a hugely vast different Alfred, both in terms of how he's portrayed, and also in that we don't really get Alfred. He's not the backbone to Bruce Wayne and Batman. So. That was my gripe about it, is that we just didn't get enough. I would have liked to have seen more. And so I wonder.
Just saying the drop off between the great Jeremy Irons to this just really hurts.
Oh, see, I didn't feel that way.
Jeremy Irons was so good in those Batman.
So who's your favorite Batman? Is it your favorite Alfred? Is it Jeremy Irons or is it Pat Hingle? No, Alfred Go. Sorry, from the Keaton movies.
It's Jeremy Irons.
All right.
He is the just the snarky butler that we all want. He looked great in everything he did. He had the gravitas of the voice. And every time I heard him, I'm like, Scar. I was like, let's go. I was like, I just hear him say Mufasa. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah. This offer was like, my precious.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, Jeremy Irons has a very special place in my heart. And my God, especially, of course,
he should have been part of the Justice League in those movies.
Oh my God!
Played such an
and then him and the tutors. It's not even a comparison. Yeah. Jeremy Irons just rocks in 100%. Like, yeah, he has that smoker's voice that just continually gets more growly as he gets older. But yeah, so for me, it's like the drop off, and I was like, yeah, he didn't have stuff, and I know. Matt Reeves has worked with Andy Serkis in the Planet of the Apes films. He played Caesar, so like I get there's a whole thing, and like I would bring a guy, but there is something about it that didn't seem
fair enough
right to me. But
Caesar was really cool. Can I look at Caesar's performance and see Alfred? I don't know.
But you know what? Like I will say, like including Jeremy Irons, all the previous Alfreds on screen have a sense of lovability. And I will say that I, in agreement with Stu, whether he was making this point or not, is that Andy Serkis doesn't have that sense of lovability as Alfred. You don't get that warm sense of he's that father figure. So
I like them more as Ulysses S. Claw. So like he's much more interesting in that the two Marvel films than he is in this. I'm like, cool, whatever. Gripe number 2, as we get into it, and I'll get to you guys. As much as we love talking about like the Penguin, and we love talking, and this is going to be a hot take. This is
okay.
I love how everyone likes Colin Farrell, but he was fine. Like honestly, this whole thing about Colin Farrell is so good is like, oh, he changed himself. It's like he's a really good looking guy. You put him in a fat suit, and you're like, oh my god, the range. Really? Have you seen Colin Farrell? Like this guy, like when your wife is thinking about it, she thinks of a very particular Colin Farrell. It's like all the films he's in. You're like, oh, you put a fat suit on him, and there you go. It's like the same thing that's said for all the Oscar actresses that win, the awards. To put them in, don't put them with makeup, and then all of a sudden they become like a great performance. It's one of those things where like you could have found a heavier set guy who's just a great actor, didn't have to be basically a supermodel on his own, an underwear model, and put some makeup on him. Like again, I just sat there going, was this necessary to put him through 8 hours of thing when you like, and we're just thinking, wow, he does such a good job because it's Colin Farrell, and I just think of him in Miami Vice. Great. But this is not like let's bring down the accolades a bit in terms of like
I don't know, man.
He was fine.
Yeah, but there's a little nuances in his performances. John and I were talking about it earlier this week when Batman and Gordon are doing the computer thing by the car, and the Penguin's like, hey, I'm still here. Like just his whole that's it just made
that's like script.
Like when they show him the crime photos and he's like, oh, don't show me that.
Honestly, could he not got Paul Giamatti? He didn't have to do anything. He just shows up.
No,
but you would have. But the problem is though, is that the one thing that you. But then that goes
to a Russian accent, John. You don't know what you're talking about. You'd be fine.
But then that goes against though, like if you see Colin Farrell in this role, or you see another individual in this role, like a Paul Giamatti, you're like, that's Paul Giamatti doing the Penguin. But you need to have somebody who doesn't look like anybody you've ever seen before. Like you melt into that role, and so. Whether it was Colin Farrell or Will Ferrell or whatever, like Brad Pitt,
a beautiful man. You just make them look old and fat. It's like Brad.
No, but what I'm saying though is that you don't want to have somebody that you're gonna like. I think for a role like that, you don't want to be like, oh, because listen, I'm a big Jeffrey Wright fan, but we just saw him, 4 months ago, as Felix Leiter in, and I'm waiting as I'm watching this. I'm like, oh, he's got the exact same voice and cadence as Westworld, like, and so that's what I was thinking at certain moments. Like, Westworld
and the Watcher. As I sit there, like, I'm the Watcher.
Right.
Like, all right,
cool. Yeah. So he's using the exact same thing. So at least I like it for me is that you put somebody into it. It wasn't somebody that I could say, oh, I recognize him from another movie or this and that. It was something different.
It's the difficulty. We're padding the stats because he's a beautiful person dressed up in a fat suit.
It was a good role. It was a well-written kind of way of portraying Penguin. And I agree. It's a little bit of stunt casting to do that. Pick Colin Farrell and make him completely unrecognizable. I think that's the closest thing they got to stunt casting. But I really did like his character. I don't think Paul Giamatti could have done it, unfortunately.
But look what they did with Danny DeVito. They put him. I mean, they put him still in a big fat suit and put him with the big nose.
Maybe the destiny of Penguin is prosthetics.
And but you still knew it was Danny DeVito.
You didn't have. I'm just saying you didn't have to. But anyways, John, let's talk about your grapes. What anything you didn't like in this movie?
So you really did not like Colin Farrell then?
No, I thought it was fine, but like everyone's
but you're
praise of Colin Farrell. I'm like, guys, Colin Farrell's a tremendous actor. He is good in so many films.
The Gentleman. He was so good in The Gentleman.
To name a few films, he was good in a ton of them. Like,
well, what about as Bullseye in the Daredevil movie with
honestly, everyone gets a stinker. Everyone gets a film where they don't get perfectly thing, because again, we know a movie is not just a director, it's also about an editor, it's about performance, it's about cutting. Like, we all know this machine, you could do the best performance, but if they cut every single scene where you do well, they can make you look terrible on a film. There's nothing you can do about it. Like we've all seen that clip of Mark Hamill talk about the lines that George Lucas made him read.
Yeah,
where he's on a talk show, he's like, blah, blah, blah. It's like, and it's just like, are you serious? Who talks like this? It's like, again, he like the beloved George Lucas. He's like, this dialogue is give me something where a normal human would talk. And he had to change lines in Star Wars because it's like this is gobbledygook. So, anyways, John, give us some
gripes. All right, so this movie, like Rob talks about Batman Returns, and there's a lot more scenes of the Batmobile in Batman Returns. So we needed more Batmobile in this, where Batman just cruising around and pulling up to coffee shops and looking in the window in his Batmobile.
Like a drive moment where he's sitting there just doing his fingers on the.
No, he does that in Batman Returns. He drives up in the full out Batmobile and pulls up and looks into the window of a coffee shop and sees.
No, it wasn't a coffee shop. It was a library where Oswald Cobblepot.
Yeah, they were like meeting, and he's driving around the streets.
He was he was going and writing all the names down of Gotham's firstborns. All right,
he was staking out. He was staking out in the Batmobile
in the worst fake snow you've ever seen. But continue.
Okay. My only gripe is there's one scene where Batman gets shot, and then they cut to him, and he's like on the floor like this. It was a funny shot of the movie, and then I question how he got to the Batmobile from that point. But yeah, I don't really have any gripes about this, unfortunately.
Rob,
so.
Or fortunately, I guess.
I started out talking about how this movie, people have said it, evokes Seven and Zodiac. I find myself, though, while I was watching it, going, oh, that reminds me of a scene from this, and that reminds me of a scene from that. And maybe they're homages, maybe they're little tips of the hat, but I felt like it was so obvious at times. I felt like the scene John had referenced earlier about how he understood, at the end of the movie, Batman becomes the light, the beacon for everybody. And he literally becomes, as he's holding up the road flare, walking people out of the wreckage. But that scene was taken from Reeves' own War for the Planet of the Apes, I think it was. The scene that preceded that, where Batman is taking down all these Riddler goons, was very reminiscent the way he was tying them up and dropping them off the edge of the scene in The Dark Knight, where Batman is doing it to the police officers, SWAT officers on the building. It just felt like there was a lot of movies that were a wink and a nod or a tip of the cap to, and it kind of took away a little bit for me at times. And I gotta say, the climax of the movie, in terms of the dams all being blown up. That was the Riddler's big end game. The dams blowing up with the water coming in. I found that to be, it felt like it got into Zack Snyder last quarter movie territory, where I was like, wow, yeah, this massive flood coming in. Everybody's hunkered down in the gardens or whatever. Like, it was like Madison Square Gardens type thing. And, and I was like, oh, flood. Like, you've been dealing with this real down to earth version of Batman, and now you've got it's a massive flood. To me, that kind of took it away a little bit. And the last thing I would say is that we talked about back on the Uncharted, which is amazing that we're mentioning this movie twice in this review, about how as they were solving the puzzles, I didn't feel like I was part of that whatsoever. Like, I felt like I was more a part of the puzzle solving when it was National Treasure or the Da Vinci Code. I felt the same way on this one as well. I felt like I didn't. Like,
you didn't have time to process the riddles?
Well, no, but I felt like when they gave you the answer, I didn't feel like I had earned. Like, it didn't feel earned. It just felt like, oh, here it is, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, it just, I don't know. It just felt it felt a bit different for me. Like I just didn't feel like I wasn't on the same path to solving the riddles as they were. It just felt like, how did they get from there to there? I don't understand. Like, okay, I'll just believe it, but I wasn't along for the journey on that. So those are probably my takeaways, my grapes on it.
So John, you already alluded to where this ranks in your Batman films. Where does this rank in your all-time Batman films? Like we've seen so many films. Where does this now slot in?
This is why I'm notoriously bad, because whatever the new thing is what I gravitate towards.
It's called like recency bias, John. There's a term for it, but yeah.
Yeah. So take that into account, folks. But I actually sit this right at the top right now. It feels like it's got all the elements that I liked. It's got more the comic book feel, like the modern comic book feel. So we have kind of graduated, much like comic books that we were designed strictly for kids, and they kind of graduated older and older. We got DC Vertigo, and now we get DC Black Label. So this felt like a DC Black Label version of Batman. So I really like how everything came together. And like you guys have already mentioned, the cast all did a wicked job. I don't think there's like a weak link in any of this. I do find Ben Stiller kind of humorous, but
wait,
overall,
in this movie, you thought Ben Stiller? What?
No, that one cop with the mustache, I thought he was kind of funny.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say he was a weak link. He was just kind of an oddball in the cast.
Okay.
But overall, Dark Knight is really good because, like Rob said, Heath Ledger's performance, also the supporting cast all does a great performance. But Batman is very minimized in that. And I really love Christian Bale Batman, but we get way more Batman here. We get way more transition from I'm Batman that slinks out of the shadow. Like you look in the shadows, he's not there, and all of a sudden he comes out of the shadows. The whole I am vengeance thing gets transitioned to, oh, you know what? I have to be more for these people. That's why I'm staying. That's why I'm not leaving to ride around on my bike with Catwoman. I just like all the parts. I feel like they really just fit together, and I'm looking forward to the rewatch on it.
Number one in your book, John?
Yeah, sorry. Number one. Sorry, Stu. I got carried away.
Rob?
Rob, give you only your answer and nothing else.
You can't give you. I was like, that was a long-winded answer to say number one.
It totally was. I feel like I'm gonna get fricasseed for not putting Dark Knight at the top. That's why I had to prelude it with a whole bunch of gobbledygook.
Rob?
Okay. It's not number one for me. I think that this is Dark Knight for me is still the number one. I have said before I have a huge love for 89, 92 because that was my jam. That was my Batman. So I have a tough time separating my love for those movies. But I'm going to put this kind of. I've only ever seen it once. I'm going to put this in the top right kind of in the middle. So for me, I would go Dark Knight. I would say Batman Returns.
So runner up. Oh, not even runner up.
No, I would say Dark Knight, Batman Returns. Yeah, I would. I would say Batman, the Batman, and then I would go Begins, Dark Knight Rises, Forever, and Batman and Robin.
This guy gave his whole
not even Mask of the Phantasm. Well, that's
I meant live action.
Mask of the Phantasm is number one.
I meant live action.
That is the song you were humming and singing. It felt so much like Batman Mask of the Phantasm, where I just sat there going, am I watching Mask of the Phantasm? This soundtrack sounds eerily familiar to that. But yeah.
But I actually like this, like I said, I like this more than Begins and more than Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, that was without question. Those two are hot garbage. Yeah, it's like, again, I think Batman Mask of the Phantasm, I've said 1,000 times, is the number one Batman theatrical release film. Dark Knight is 2, and then I have a soft spot for Batman Forever. I feel like that's my movie. That's my jam.
That's why
I love Val Kilmer. Like, that's my jam.
Kilmer, he plays the same Bruce Wayne Batman. He's just the same.
Yeah. Does this Bruce Wayne do the exact same thing as well? He doesn't change his voice. Mr. John Ho. Is he any different from Batman to Bruce Wayne? No.
I meant more than the voice.
He doesn't
the voice is the exact same voice for both characters.
Yeah.
So does,
same with this Batman.
So Pattinson.
Same as
Oh, okay.
Pattinson. Like, does
Yeah.
Pattinson change his nuance at all? No, he's the same
No, but
voice.
he hides. He's a recluse or whatever, recluse or whatever you want to call it.
He's not recluse. He's a recluse. Yes.
Recluse. Yeah, whatever.
It's
Words are hard.
Robert Pattinson. I
Yeah,
will not
they are.
merch the fine name of Robert Pattinson. I'm Team Edward. I'm all about him. I think he's a fantastic actor. He looked like he got in not as much like ripped shape, but he got in decent enough shape where I'm like, okay, this is legitimate. Batman,
Believable.
I got it. It's good
Yep.
enough that I could see him carry the weight of the costume. I'm like, he doesn't look like a string bean, so it's fine. But yeah, I feel like this is like I guess it's my fourth film that I kind of think. I think I have problems with Dark Knight.
So somewhere in the middle, mid tier.
Yeah, Batman. The two Nolan movies, the beginning and end, have issues.
That's what I'm
Well,
saying.
yeah,
The Nolan ones aren't like perfect as a whole. They work really well.
No, but
Nope.
the heights.
Nope.
of
Except
the
for
Dark
except
Knight-
for the last
no.
one. Yeah, except for the
There's
last
only
one.
three. There's only three Batman movies and only three Batman adventures in all those Nolan movies because Dark Knight takes place 1 year later.
Yep.
And then Rises is 8 years after that because he's been hiding for 8 years. That means we've only got three Batman adventures or whatever. There was nothing else in between. That's bullshit. And I fucking hate it. All right.
It's Rob. It's an Elseworld. Leave it alone. So it is what it is. It's whatever. I can see why this film is resonating with a lot of people because people like Batman. They like the fact that even though he's just a regular dude, he has problems. He's trying to do his best. You know, it's not like Superman. Superman basically is unstoppable. Like I think I heard the thing about Van Lathan. One of the guys I heard from a podcast was saying that Superman's like the hero you idolize as a boy, and Batman's the hero you idolize as a man. Same with Spider-Man. It's like why those Spider-Man and Batman resonate so well with adults is that these guys have problems. They even though they have all this great power comes great responsibility. Like they have grown problems and they never always get what they want. Superman is pretty much gets everything he wants all the time. He's the strongest, the fastest. He cannot be stopped. Like he's just like everything is like it's kind of like what the Matrix did. It was too perfect, and you humans can't just be satisfied with a world that's too perfect. We tried to give you paradise, but you rejected it. So it's kind of the same thing where Superman is kind of those heroes where you're like, oh yeah, there's no risk involved with him. And Batman, like this film, there's a few times where he got knocked out.
Yeah.
He couldn't cut the cowl. At least this one there wasn't the electric thing where who started.
That's from Returns, isn't it?
Yeah,
The Dark Knight.
Dark
Dark
Knight,
Knight, they do it.
Oh,
And,
that too. Yeah, Dark Knight. Yeah, he does like a zapper thing.
But you know
yeah.
what? It kind of makes up like it. What you're saying evokes something interesting to me because we look at a lot of those other Batmans that we've seen on screen, and when they say, "Oh, it's the Trinity," all those prior Batmans, you could say yes, they belong next to Superman, Wonder Woman as part of the Trinity. This Batman doesn't because he doesn't feel godlike. He doesn't feel even Christian Bale's Batman in The Dark Knight feels really power elevated from where he was in Begins. And so
can we talk about the funniest moment in the movie where he does the squirrel jump and you think he's going to land on top of that, whatever it is, a bus or whatever, and he gets smashed and owned and flies onto the floor, and then he slinks off into the shadows after. That was the greatest, funniest point of the whole movie. Like, and I guess he called it Uber to get home or something like that. But yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's Triple X would have landed that on a half pike, but
yeah,
but that's great though. But
it's great that he didn't land it. It was
he should have broken like 12 ribs and broken his wrist, but whatever. It's a carry on.
What did you think though about the adrenaline? Remember he had that port in his, I don't know if it was his arm or his leg.
I think it was his leg. I think it was his
might have been his leg. And then where he takes out, I guess, his utility belt, he had that, the adrenaline, like an epinephrine, and essentially shoots it into it to give him the adrenaline. Now, there are some people online that are saying because it was a yellow tinged color that was Venom. Right. Anyways, I don't know if that's true or not, but I actually thought that for me was like super practical. I was like, it made sense to me as opposed to carrying an EpiPen with you. That's really what it was. It was a small version of an EpiPen.
I rocked that perk in Call of Duty.
Rob,
and then the red goes away, and then you can
Why
go
do I
back.
try to
fans
have
of this podcast know I'm a big fan of European football, and they have the magic spray that you spray on people and you just walk it off. So like, my knee hurts. Just put the magic spray. And
yeah, but that magic spray helps people who take these funky dives of never being hit. That's what
magic spray is magic spray, Rob. You don't ask questions. That's it.
Did you guys like?
All right.
Stu
Well,
kind of
I
mentioned
like
it,
the
but did you
realism
like
to it, yeah.
Pattinson as Batman?
Pattinson was great. Like he.
But did he surprise you at all? Because
No,
we were all
I think that what surprised me that he became Batman. Robert Pattinson has so much money where he does Cosmopolis. Like he works with Cronenberg. He does the weird stuff. He doesn't care about this stuff. Like he did the Harry Potter film. Everyone loved him. He did the Twilight films. Everyone loves him even more. And he's like, I'll do whatever I want. And the fact that he chose to do this, and you can tell he's a true Batman fan because he cares about this stuff. Like he doesn't have to do any of this. He can just chill for the rest of his life. So the fact that he did it and kind of treats the material with the reverence that Ben Affleck kind of does out off and on. We know in our heart of hearts, Ben Affleck doesn't really love Batman the way he loves Daredevil. Like, I think you like 100%. Like the way he talked about Daredevil when he did Daredevil is like he's just so upset it didn't come out the way it is because I think he can relate more to Matt Murdock. And Batman's like, I did it for my kids. Like, it's Batman. It's like, I'll just do it. Like, Robert Pattinson kind of, you can tell he cares about being Batman. I don't even know if Christian Bale cared about being Batman. He's like, no. It's a part. So he's probably the first guy who's donned the cowl that actually likes the character.
Yeah.
And even I love Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton probably didn't care about Batman either. He was like, I just doing this film. So I see the reverence of the way and all the different interviews that Rob Pattinson talks about Batman. And I think he's the first guy outside of all the guys who play Spider-Man who are like, oh my God, like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like, I love this character. And it shows on the screen. And I know that one of us before, unnamed names will gripe about his hair being too long and whatever. Like, who cares? Like, it didn't even, like, honestly, he was waiting for like 3 seconds. Yeah. Like, it didn't even matter. You never even saw him with the hair, like, mostly. It was kind of like, he kind of looked kind of like that Superman kind of dorky look. It's like, it fits the theme of him not being presentable, not being slick, not being the Bruce Wayne we know, because as Rob, you said, he's not that Bruce Wayne yet. So he doesn't have the slick back look and the look of millionaire playboy because he's not
he might
ready
not
to
become
do that.
Bruce Wayne though.
He will. He will because it's part of the Batman where he utilizes that as part of his utility belt. Like he understands at the end of this film, I can do more, and he uses Bruce Wayne to leverage that fact in the daytime so he can stuff done at nighttime. That's what it's about. He has to do it on both fronts. And at the end of the film, where we haven't seen a Batman film either, he does a full monologue and does a narration. So again, way different that we have never seen. So I'm
here for it. Like I'm happy we got this.
Yeah, it's like John, like you said, it feels like a comic book where he's talking the panels. Like you just for those who don't want to read, here it is, book on tape. So
will you go see it in the theater again, Stu?
Yeah. I would see it again. Yeah, but I'm probably gonna watch it HBO Max on a screen.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Will you go to a theater to see it again, or will you wait for it to? Yeah, 100%. Okay,
100%. I think all of us would, right?
Yeah, I definitely want to try and see it again if I can fit that 3 hours in. But,
it's a heavy commitment. That's why I'm gonna watch HBO Max. So I'm just like, I just this is what it is. All right, we could go on and on, but I think we have touched everything we need to touch on this episode. John, where can they find you on the internet and the desert of the real?
Yeah, so Heroes World Online will take you to almost all our social media platforms, the Instagram, the Facebook, the YouTube. And if you want to listen to us on audio, Heroes World Podcast, we could use some ratings on Spotify. If you guys are on Spotify, it's free. You can subscribe to whatever podcast you like and use their service. You don't have to have a paid premium account. So give us give us a 5-star rating, and if we get enough, we'll kind of pop into the algorithms and all that stuff. Helps us a lot. And if you want to check us out in person, we are in Markham, Ontario, 8601 Warden Avenue. Links to the Addy and all that kind of information are on all of our social medias as well. So come check us out. We got tons and tons of stuff. Lots of really cool Batman stuff. We've been recommending Batman Imposter graphic novel to people, and the Batman Ego book, which I think Matt Reeves has mentioned that he kind of took some things from. And we've got tons of the toys. We're taking pre-orders for the upcoming Hot Toys stuff. They just revealed the Bat Cycle that goes along with Batman, and we're probably gonna have 3 different options for 1/6 scale Batmobiles. I'm pretty excited. So yeah, hit us up.
Rob, what's happening in the Sidekick Show this week?
Well, it's an interesting week coming up, Stu, because on the Sidekick Show Monday night, 8:15 on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, you are going to see the director of John's favorite Batman movie, Mr. Christopher Nolan, directing the new Batman, Mr. Robert Pattinson, in a movie called Tenet. That came out in September of 2020, all the way back when we were still dealing at really the beginning stage of a pandemic. And it kind of came and went like a fart in the wind in the theaters because of what was happening with COVID-19. So if you haven't had an opportunity to check it out, you can definitely check it on Crave, if you have the Crave subscription in Canada. I believe it's on HBO Max in the US. But watch it and then join John and I as we dive into the world of Tenet on Monday night, 8:15 live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch.
Yeah, I believe he snuck out during filming to do the audition for Batman, right? And I think there's another story in the news that says Matt Reeves was worried because he did Tenet. He thought he wasn't going to do Batman because of that or something like that. So there's a whole tie link there.
Honestly, if there were more sparkles and rainbows in this film, I wouldn't care, because Robert Pattinson, ride or die with that guy. He's the best. So,
what if Jacob shows up? What if Taylor Lautner shows up?
Plus, I'm also afraid of
who
all
would
the
you have him
Twilight
play?
fans, because they will come after you. So no, even to this day, they're strong and fierce and mobilized. So never will I say bad about Robert Pattinson. He's the best. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today on the podcast. John is not a fan of Robert Pattinson, so send all hate mail to him.
Hey, last thing I saw in the theater with my wife was that third movie.
Send all complaints to John Ho at aircanada.com and let people know that.
No, poor John Ho at aircanada.com. Don't do that. My name is pretty common, so you might actually get a hit there.
John Ho at aircanada.com/Vanis. Let me know. So anyways, thank you all for joining us. Have a good day. We'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.